headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador. This is from the south, and I'm Sonia Gray. Ecuador's President Lenin Moreno has asked his entire cabinet of ministers to resign. The government has explained, though, that this is just part of the process of evaluating the minister's performance in office. After this evaluation process is completed by the end of the year, the president will make public his decision regarding the cabinet. While the rest of the country was enjoying Thanksgiving Day, U.S. troops deployed at the southern border crossing were busy prepping for the migrant caravan's arrival. The troops appeared to be carrying out an exercise as military helicopters were seen hovering overhead. It took place just hours after the U.S. president said he had authorized the use of lethal force by troops guarding the border against migrant caravans. And a large group of migrants has marched towards the border in HAVANA to request asylum in the United States. The march started a couple of hours before the drills from the U.S. troops. The various migrant caravans headed to the border are made up of about 7,000 people, all from Central America.
It's a way of telling Trump to get things underway as well. We've been lining up for asylum, but it's very slow. We can't spend months waiting for authorities to get moving and suffering.
What is missing is a flow of information so that migrants can see their options. If they want to cross the border, then they have to put their names on a list and be aware of the daily quota of people.
Almost 40 days since they left their homes, more migrants have arrived at HAVANA with the hope of starting a new life in the United States.
Nearly 40 days and 40 nights after they left their homeland, they arrived at the border city of HAVANA. They walked more than 4,000 kilometers to reach their destination.
When I realized we arrived to the border with Mexico and the U.S., I felt a relief.
Just a couple of steps away from the wall that divides Mexico and the United States, migrants have sought refuge. They've survived a journey that is yet to reach its end.
We are so close to the border, waiting for Trump to grant us permission to pass. We came here to look for a better future for our children, to work and have a new life. There are some people that have been in the city of Santiago for a week now, and desperation is starting to boil.
Crossing the border is crucial to improving the future of all those who they left behind at home.
I came to help my mother, who stayed in Honduras, to work and help her.
Displays of solidarity have been countless. However, the more than 3,000 migrants who now comprise the caravan have also been hard hit by xenophobia.
As we were walking here yesterday, a police officer said, "Get out of here, Hondurans." Then he cursed, but I didn't say anything bad. We are not here to disrespect them.
Meanwhile, the Trump administration insists that U.S. military forces have been deployed in anticipation of what he has described as an invasion.
Dozens of people in Chile have gathered in front of the presidential palace holding up portraits of the Mapuche member Camilo Catrillanca to protest his murder. The demonstrators held Catrillanca's portrait to their faces for 40 minutes in complete silence. The murder of the young Mapuche man at the hands of the police a week ago has sparked a wave of protests. This protest was organized by a group of artists and activists.
For anyone who wants to participate, the event involves holding up a portrait of Camilo Catrillanca up to your face, in front of the presidential palace, and facing that way because we believe those responsible for his death are in there.
And Interior Minister Andreas Chadwick will be called to Congress to answer questions about Catrillanca's murder. With 61 votes, lawmakers approved a resolution that would allow questions to be posed to the minister. This is to take place during a lower house session on December 11th. The opposition says it hopes that this will serve to publicly clarify the police's role in the murder. And our correspondent in Santiago, Tiara Valenzuela, brings us more details about this case.
On Wednesday, the National Police Chief went to Congress to answer questions made by human rights and Mapuche community commissions in regard to the timeline of events that led to the murder of Mapuche activist Camilo Cartillonca. This case has outraged political movements and the Chilean people. The Mapuche have held several demonstrations with the support of Chilean citizens. Many people have marched in different parts of Santiago and throughout the country, in particular where Mapuche communities are located. Tomorrow, there will be more demonstrations in Santiago to demand justice and to reject the ongoing state violence against the Mapuche people.
Still in Chile, a study by a non-profit organization has revealed that over 5 million people there live below the poverty line. Now, these figures go against the official government statistics that some argue tries to hide the country's socio-economic issues.
The Sol Foundation has challenged the government's claim of how many people in poverty. According to its research, there are actually 4 million more than the official numbers say. In fact, over half of Chile's population earns less than $500 a month, in a country that has one of the highest costs of living in the region.
Nobody in Chile can manage to live on a minimum wage. Today, no one can live with a monthly average of 200,000 pesos.
The cost of living here is through the roof. Inflation is supposedly under control, but in reality, that's not true.
The Sol Foundation has laid bare the disparity between reality on the ground and what the government thinks to be the case.
The conclusion we have come to is that, taking into account salaries and the pension system, nearly 30% of the population lives under the poverty line, not just 8.6% as the government reports. That's an increase from a supposed 1.6 million people to over 5 million.
Among those millions, the most affected are senior citizens and the Mapuche people.
As a Mapuche, we are being used for a government program that has its whole charade written out. They say there is no discrimination, no violence, no stolen lands.
A government that is clearly out of touch can be the only way to describe how a country with the biggest GDP in Latin America has such high levels of inequality.
To other news now, on Wednesday night, police shot and killed a member of the Confederation of Workers of the Popular Economy in Argentina. His name was Ronald Orellana. Orellana was killed outside Buenos Aires during a police operation to evict a group of people who wanted to take over land to build houses. Witnesses said he was shot in the mouth and in the back. Others were injured by rubber bullets. 4 people were arrested. Students and teachers have faced off against the police in the Argentine capital as the legislature voted in favor of a controversial new university project. A strong police presence blocked the demonstrators from reaching the parliament building and used tear gas to break up the protests. 29 higher education colleges will close to make way for the bill, leaving many teachers without a job. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has met with the Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel in Havana. Sanchez and Diaz-Canel have agreed to maintain permanent political contact with annual meetings. Both leaders have expressed their wish to normalize relations between the two countries. This is the first visit by a Spanish premier to the island in 32 years. Time for a short break now. We'll have more news in a minute.
The ruling world order has always subjugated the masses. But who are the actors behind every move? What are their real interests? We analyze every move on Critical Move. Weekdays, only on Telesur. Telesur brings you special interviews with social and political personalities. Monday, from Washington. Tuesday, from Mexico. Wednesday, from Caracas. Thursday, from Quito. Friday, From Havana, analysis about our continent's reality. Weekdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. Thousands of women have marched in Chile's capital, Santiago, to protest gender violence. The demonstration comes just before the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women on Sunday. Women carried a huge 18-meter-long poster with the photographs and names of victims of femicide. They're demanding tougher measures against those who commit these crimes. At least 44 women are killed in Chile in 2018 by their partner.
Violence against women is violence that is expressed in multiple forms, every day, repeatedly to all of us, from the very young to the elderly.
Jail, mainly jail, and to have tough measures or even more tough against them, against misogynists.
Human rights organizations in Colombia are calling on the government to fulfill the terms of the peace agreement which was signed in 2016. Around 400 social leaders gathered at the 10th National Human Rights Forum to debate on a possible solution to the social conflict. Leaders warned of the potential dismantling of the system for reparations and justice. They also condemned the persecution of former FARC members. In 2014, the Colombian government and the FARC announced a plan to solve the country's drug problem. So let's find out more in the third part of our series on Colombia's peace agreement.
The government wanted to get to the root of the problem, so they decided to take back land that's being used by drug traffickers. To do this, they pledged to consult people living in over 100 areas they wanted to target. The needs of the community were meant to be taken into account before they rolled out any measures, but the government have failed to do this.
Minister Emilio Archila was in charge of the post-conflict discussions. For 20 days, he called us to meet him at the presidential palace. But when we got there, he was not there. That makes us think they are taking the process as a joke. It's disrespectful to social leaders and to the peace agreement.
The expansion of illegal crops is directly linked to poverty and a lack of law enforcement by the government. Criminal organizations have capitalized on the situation, but campesinos still hope to get rid of them and illegal crops.
Organizations like COCAM and the Catatumbo Campesino Association have shown their willingness to move forward with the removal of illegal crops on their land, but the Colombian government is not helping.
According to reports, the removal of illegal crops has only progressed by 2%. All the while, campesinos are at the mercy of criminal gangs, leading to the death of 47 of their leaders.
The previous government promised to find a solution to illegal crops, but they didn't, and neither has the government of Ivan Duque. The killing of our leaders continues.
According to the spokesperson of the Kroc Institute in Colombia, it's time to put an end to the criminalization and persecution of campesinos with the support of the government.
The challenge Colombia faces is to integrate solutions in order to stop these crimes. It has to be a step-by-step process that answers all concerns and issues.
The peace agreement was an innovative step. It gave hope, only to be dashed by the lack of commitment to it.
The first group of more than 6,000 Cuban doctors that worked in Brazil have arrived in Havana. This after their country announced its withdrawal from the More Doctors program. The group was welcomed by the Deputy Health Minister. The doctors had worked in disadvantaged areas of Brazil for the past 3 years. Cuba's decision to pull its doctors out of Brazil came after President-elect Jair Bolsonaro made inflammatory comments questioning their qualifications. The Forum on Critical Thinking in Argentina has entered its last day. This event is taking place just under a week before the G20 meeting in the same country. It has been billed as one of the most important gatherings of progressive social scientists, politicians and activists, all with a view to discuss the fight for equality, social justice and democracy. World leaders have taken part in the forum. So far, we've heard from the former presidents of Brazil and Argentina, Dilma Rousseff and Cristina Fernandez, as well as from the vice president of Bolivia. Argentina's economist and politician Cecilia Najon has criticized the government of President Mauricio Macri and explained how he uses the G20 group to serve his own interests.
Argentina looks at it sideways, and the government of Mauricio Macri in particular takes advantage of the G20 group to try to legitimize its neoliberal agenda, its agenda of exclusion, with a double speech. They say very important things that sound very nice, and the reality is that it's a government that is carrying out a very brutal adjustment.
Various social organizations in El Salvador have taken to the streets to demonstrate against water privatization. Their main goal is to demand that the National Assembly declares access to water as a human right. The demonstrators also visited the headquarters of various political parties, demanding laws that favor the environment. According to the UN, El Salvador has the highest level of environmental damage in the Americas after Haiti. A court in Guatemala has found a former soldier guilty of murdering hundreds of indigenous people during the dictatorship in the 1980s. It was one of the bloodiest massacres carried out by the army.
Santos Lopez is a former member of Guatemala's elite force known as Caivides. He's been sentenced to over 5,000 years in prison for being responsible for the De las Dos Eres massacre in 1982.
For us, it's very satisfying to see this after horrible crimes against our country during the armed conflict. I believe that it's very good, not only on a personal level, but also for the families. I was a victim of it. 6 members of my family disappeared. My first son was one of them. This won't bring our relatives back, but I think it's necessary, so no more crimes against humanity happen again.
The tribunal held this retired military officer responsible for murdering 201 people and crimes against humanity, possibly the most brutal massacre the army perpetrated against indigenous people. A survivor told the judges about the details.
I was 11 years old when these men killed my family, people and children. I watched how they killed women. They also killed children one by one. So there were no survivors left.
Forensic research and statements from the families of the victims and survivors were given to the court for the sentence to be passed. This case has uncovered just how barbaric the army was.
They were executed by hitting them on the head with hammers. They broke their skulls and threw them to a pit. They also threw kids alive in there, and they shot men and threw grenades at them. I think that was the most shocking part. This community was erased from the map.
Dictator Efraín Ríos Montt should have been put on trial too, because the massacre took place under his administration. He died before he could be brought to justice.
Time for another break. More news in a minute.
An occasion to enjoy the cultural diversity that defines our South American essence. Come along to find out the story behind these personalities, traditions, and artistic expressions that unite us as a whole. Real Lives, Friday, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. Gunmen have killed at least 7 people in an attack on the Chinese consulate in the Pakistani city of Karachi. The 3 gunmen, 2 police officers and 2 other unidentified victims are confirmed dead after armed attackers attempted to storm the building. An insurgent group has claimed responsibility for the attack.
All Chinese consular staff and family members in China's consulate in Pakistan are safe. Prime Minister Imran Khan had expressed condolences to the consulate. The Chinese side strongly condemns any violent attacks targeting any diplomatic missions and requests the Pakistani side takes measures to ensure the safety of Chinese nationals and organizations. China expresses condolences for the 2 dead Pakistani security officers as well as the families and those injured.
8 people have died after an armed attack on a French drilling company site in southeastern Niger on Thursday. The assailants are believed to belong to the Nigerian jihadist group Boko Haram, which is active near the border with Nigeria. More than 500,000 civil servants in Tunisia walked off the job demanding higher wages. The state workers gathered in front of the parliament building, calling for the government to resign. Several public institutions nationwide were paralyzed by the strike, while only emergency services were provided at hospitals. The International Monetary Fund is pressuring Tunisia's government to cut the public sector wage bill.
We're here to ask for salary increases for workers and for retired people. Authorities say they don't have money for them, but they have it for those who cause division, those who carry out bombings, but not for normal citizens.
I'm here as everybody with the UGTT union. We have uncertain jobs. We are here with the UGTT because we support it and we support their demands.
Lebanese citizens have taken to the streets of Beirut to protest the government. The demonstrations took place on the country's 75th anniversary of independence. Protesters are, however, demanding real independence as they call for Lebanon to be free from sectarianism and strife. They say the country has also failed to protect its citizens and provide for them. Prime Minister Saad Hariri has yet to form a government some 6 months after parliamentary elections took place.
We are here today to demand real independence for the country free from sectarianism and strife. Do we have a real independence? Do we have a country? No water, no electricity, no services, so we have no sovereignty over our public property. We are here today to say we demand real independence of state institutions and an independent judiciary free from political interference and with dignity for Lebanese citizens.
Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has embarked on his first foreign trip since the murder of the Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi. A statement from the Royal Saudi Court did not specify his destination, saying only that he will visit brotherly Arab states. The Crown Prince has been under increased international pressure after information linking him to the murder of Khashoggi emerged. And after 14 years, a road that connects North and South Korea has been officially reopened. The project is part of a military agreement between Pyongyang and Seoul, which was signed during the 3rd Inter-Korean Summit. It will be used to transport personnel and equipment for excavations in the Korean demilitarized zone. And we've come to the end of this news brief. For these and many other stories, you can find them on our website at talisiaenglish.net. And join us on social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Talisia English, I am Soini Gray. Thank you so much for watching.